Hello and welcome to episode 3 of Violette Yarn Gift Co Shopcast Knitting Podcast, where I share my knitting tips and tricks I wish I knew when I started to knit. Violette Yarn Gift Co is a cute little yarn store located in Bouctouche, New Brunswick, near the Atlantic Ocean. If you've never been to Bouctouche, it's beautiful, mostly touristic area in the summer. And if you come for the first time, you may never leave because everyone is so welcoming. Welcome! Welcome if you are new viewers, or welcome if you are returning viewer. Thank you for your support. So today's episode will be a little bit different. This segment, I called it Meet the Person Behind the Tag. So today we are going to meet my friend Symone, who is a knitwear designer from New Brunswick. So I would like to invite you to go get your drink, water, coffee, tea, whatever you like to drink, and come back and join me in a few seconds. I'll be pleased to introduce you to my friend Symone. Welcome to episode 3 of Violette Yarn Gift Co Shopcast Knitting Podcast. And as I mentioned earlier, today I've invited my friend Symone. Hello Symone. Symone is a new designer that is local here in New Brunswick. She's from Fredericton, and thank you so much for doing this long drive after a snowstorm. How are the road?
They weren't bad, but I'm very happy to be here, so thank you for inviting me.
Oh, when was the first time I invited you? Like about a year ago?
Yeah, I think you were just starting to think about it. And you were like, if I ever do this, will you come on and be a guest? And I was like, anytime, you just let me know when.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so happy to have you. So, Symone is WanderfulKnits, and you are on Instagram,
yes,
on Ravelry.
Yes.
Yes. So, when this whole thing started, so how old were you when you started to knit?
Oh, so I was a lot older than most people, I think, who like start when they're kids. I was already a full-fledged adult. So I actually started in 2014, and I don't want to have to do the math now, but it's probably like 31, like, no? Huh?
Oh, no, you're going to tell us how old you are.
I know, because I gotta think backwards. I gotta do the math.
Yeah, so it's almost 10 years ago. We're
yeah.
We're in 2023.
I know.
Oh my gosh, time flies.
It blows my mind to even think about it.
Yeah, so what was your first inspiration? Like, what makes you pick up some needles and start to knit?
Well, I've always been someone who sort of like tinkers with their hands. Like, I remember being really young and in high school, and all the kids had these like plastic strings that we would like flip together and tighten and make like yarn lanyards out of, and then we make keychains and bracelets. And so I've always been someone who just kind of tinkers with their hand. And I've always seen knitting because I'm originally from Trinidad. So in the Caribbean, you know, there's a lot of crochet. There's a lot of like knitted, but very loose knitted on like cotton sort of dresses and stuff. And I've always been kind of intrigued by it. But I kind of really like the warm stuff.
Now that you're here.
So when I just, you know, met someone and her mom knit, and I remember just thinking like, man, I've always wanted to knit. Like, and she was like, just go for it. Like, just go to Walmart and get yourself a pair of needles and some yarn and try it. And so I did. I got myself a little skein of gray red heart.
Oh, yes.
And some plastic knee, gray plastic knee. I still remember them. They had like red caps.
Oh my, yeah. Now that's aging.
And I just pulled up a YouTube tutorial on how to knit. And I remember just being so frustrated and just yelling at the screen, like, what is she doing? How did she do that? Like,
don't go so fast.
I know. Pause and rewind, pause. Yes. And eventually it all started like clicking together, and I made my first row of stitches that looked amazing, and I was like, oh, I could do this.
Yes.
So I just tinkered away and just kept making this extremely long scarf, which I then gifted to my partner, and he still has to this
wow.
day. It's horrible. It looks so bad.
But it's a momentum. You can look back and say, what, how much you've grown.
Yeah, I do. I look at it and I see the progress, but I have to be honest. Every time he puts it on, I'm like, please take that off. Like, please put that to the back of the cupboard somewhere.
Yes, it's just a keepsake.
Yeah.
Now, yes. Oh, that's wonderful. So that's wonderful knits. So a scarf was your first project then?
Yes.
Yeah. And who's your knitting designer that inspires you?
Oh my God, there's so many.
Really? So you gotta pick one.
Oh my God, one. I don't know if I could just pick one. I don't know if I could just pick one.
So the latest one, like the one that you've just seen a pattern pass by, I'm like, oh yes, this is inspiring. Or
yeah, I do. I buy a lot of Jessie May
yes,
designs, patterns. I love her
yes.
stuff. I just find that she designs things that are just like really fun, and they're functional, and they tend to be cropped, which I do love.
Yeah, I'm doing the outline tee right now.
Yes.
And after doing the 7.25 inch of body, and then you're starting into the front, I'm like, wow. Good thing it's for my 25-year-old daughter, because I ain't wearing that.
I mean, you could definitely wear it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I do really love her stuff. I also stumbled upon a new designer, and I think I might be butchering her name, but I just go by her Instagram handle, and it's @Akshanya.
Okay.
And I just love her patterns as well. They're also so fun. They're so like cute, and just it looks like something I just want to put on and go out, like definitely date night wear, or like night out with the girls wear.
I'm gonna have to look her up. So we're gonna link her, and I'm gonna find her proper spelling and all that, and we'll hashtag. So yeah, this episode is about the person behind the hashtag. So this is Wonderful Knit again. Yes, so exciting. And your favorite designer. How about we talk about what comes first when you decide to design a pattern? Do you see a yarn and say, oh, I can see something in it? Or do you actually have an idea and then go get the yarn?
Yeah, for me first, I'm an ideation person. So for me, I sit down with my sketchbook and I just start thinking about, what am I missing from my closet? What do I have in my closet that I want a knitted version of? And then I just sort of sit down and I sketch it, and then I start to think, okay, well, how do I like make this uniquely me in some sort of way? Like, is it a stitch pattern I could use? Like, what do I really want to stand out about this? Like, do I want it to be the design? Do I want it to be the texture of the actual knitting? Do I just want it to be something simple and easy, or maybe just a little bit complex? And I start just sketching it out. Like if it's a cardigan or a top, I just fill my design book with sketches.
Nice.
And then I put it away. And then I sit with it, like I come back to it every now and again, and then I start to think about like, okay, well, which one really is pulling me towards, I want to cast this on right away and start doing the math and figuring it out. And so, yeah, that's kind of how it starts for me. And then I find the yarn afterwards, because there's no shortage of that.
No, I'm sure you have a very, very nice stash even at home.
Yeah, let's not talk about it.
So your partner is in the car. You can't hear us right now, right?
I mean, I did once, I can be a little bit ridiculous. So we did once, have a conversation about me storing the yarn in the pantry. But I tucked it there just for a moment.
A little basket with little name in it, like a flower, but it's like not really a flower. You need a really big pantry.
Listen, yarn is just overflowing at my house.
Yeah, no kidding. So tell us about what you're wearing today.
Yeah, so this is one of my newest designs. It's the Light Me Up crop that I designed for the Radical Threads issue of their magazine. And I just really wanted something fun and flirty, and I love the texture. It's so squishy.
It's beautiful. And the texture is really nice.
It's so comfortable. It's got extra inches in the back, so it's a tiered hem. Just for any of the girls like me who got a little something in the back, and you want to make sure when you sit down that everything covered and looking good.
Yes.
And it comes in You can change the size if you don't want it cropped. You can lengthen it. The instructions are really easy to follow, and if you want to make any modifications, it's super easy to do.
Very nice. I might actually do something like that. I really like that. But one of my favorite one that I like from the first time I met you, you were wearing this beautiful yellow summer crop. Feels like summer?
Feels like summer,
Feels like
yes.
summer crop top, and it's absolutely gorgeous. I love the lace at the bottom. The design is beautiful.
Yes, it was my ode to summer, which is my favorite season out of all the seasons.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. Oh my gosh, I love summer. But winter is not so bad if it's kind of consistent. But this week we had one of those most amazing yo-yo week ever. I was sitting outside at the store here on Thursday knitting, and yesterday we had a snowstorm.
Yes, I know. I actually it was just disrespectful. The weather was
I
just
know, right?
being disrespectful.
Damn, Mother Nature, you.
We had a 13-degree shift in the wrong direction. I was not happy about it at all.
No, but today is beautiful and sunny. It's still cold, but wow. And the roads were nice to drive.
The roads were
all the
nice,
way
yeah.
from Fredericton here.
No issues at all.
What do we have on the right here?
Yeah, so here we have my ribbed for your pleasure.
I love the name.
Because that's exactly what it is. It is ribbed for your pleasure. It is made out of BFL,
Yes.
100%, and it is so squishy and so comforting, and it's meant to be worn with about 3 inches of positive ease if you like, because it really is just a sweater that you put on when you're like, I want to be comfy, I want to be comfortable,
Yes,
like I just want to be hugged in
Yes.
wool. This is it.
Very nice. I love it. I just, if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it maybe without the neck.
Yeah, that's
I've
fine.
these things with neck, and I always modify all the pattern. I love the shape. I love the raglan. I love the rib. So I can make my own.
Yeah, you could definitely
I guess you-
modify it.
yes.
Knitting patterns are like recipes. They
Yes.
are giving you the basics, and as long as it's got like a good schematic and you've got the measurements, you can play with it whatever you like. 'Cause
Absolutely.
we all have different bodies, right? And we all like different things. So never feel like you have to just knit it, especially one of my patterns. Never feel like you have to knit them exactly as they're written. Like if you want to modify something, or if you even want to like talk over a modification with me, I'm happy to do.
Oh, you're so
Yeah.
kind, you're so nice. So that's like you said, it's absolutely like a recipe. And if you see some translation from Norwegian pattern or Eastern European pattern, they all call that a recipe. Right? The first time I'm like, what are they talking about? It's a pattern, but yeah, it is a recipe as well. So that's pretty cool. And what are you working on now?
I am working on a new design.
Yes?
It's a circular yoke design. It's a nice, cute, like spring summer top with a design feature that I'm very excited about, but I'm keeping a little hush hush for now. And it's my first time doing a circular yoke.
Okay.
So I will admit that this has been ripped back multiple times as I'm like figuring out the math and like the, you know, rate of increases and things like that, which is something I really love about knitting, especially knitwear design. It's all about problem solving.
Yes.
And I love puzzles. And when I'm
Good.
designing, it just feels like one big puzzle. And sometimes I do need to phone a friend to like talk through this. Like, does this make sense to you, or is it only me? Because I've been staring at it for like hours now and it's all just embedded in my brain. So yeah, I'm very excited. It will be coming out in time for summer, so you can start casting it on your needles and have it ready for summer before the temperatures change.
It's so exciting.
But I'm also adding some mods to it so that if you want to wear it in a little bit colder weather, you
Okay.
could as well. So yeah,
Okay,
stay tuned for
wow,
that.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited. And just a little hint of what fabric are you talking about?
Yes.
The fibers?
So I'm actually collaborating with a yarn dyer out of Quebec, Cat's Riverside Studio. So it is a 100% merino DK weight yarn in a colorway called Fizz Pop, and it is
Love it.
beautiful.
I think I may have seen a story on your Instagram. I'm like, what is she working on?
Yes, I took it to Dungeons and Dragons,
You
and
did,
I had
yes.
to. The colorway is
Oh,
everything. The moment I saw it, I was like, I need this for this design. Like they just go too well together.
oh, that's amazing. I can't wait to see it. And yeah, so we're going to be following you. And one of the questions I had, what process, like when you start designing, like yeah, you do your sketching, you do all that, but do you have like someone who's helped you, like a mentor, or is there like, if somebody at home watching right now knitting says, I love to design, what can you tell them about?
Yeah, so when I first started thinking about doing this, I actually had a conversation with our mutual friend Trish,
Yes.
who, if you don't know yet, if you haven't like read any of my blog posts or my Instagram stories, she is my knitting Jedi and I am her Padawan. Because Trish is the one who like exposed me to the world of like local yarn stores. Because
Yes.
she owned Yarns on York in downtown Fredericton, and I remember going in there once and just having my mind blown by all the colors and the different fibers, and we've become really great friends, and she's such a wealth of knowledge. So I was having a conversation with her and just thinking like, I'm really thinking about doing this knitwear design thing, and she was immediately encouraging.
Nice.
And she told me about the Swatch Studio, which is run by Francois Denoy, who is at Aroha Knits on Instagram, and she is a fantastic knitwear designer, and I had been following her on Instagram, and so I was like, well, you got to learn from the best, right? So
That's right.
I signed up, and it was such an amazing experience to kind of just get the understanding of like the design process, the marketing process, like even how you format your patterns, just like learning those best practices. And she also offers like coaching sessions. So even though I'm sort of graduated out of the program, I still contact her for coaching sessions. In fact, we had one not too long ago.
Good.
Yeah.
So after designing, then there's other process behind the scene. Like you don't just design and publish because you want to make sure that your pattern is not only well written but has been tested in different way of knitting as well. So yeah. So that's definitely accurate. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes, and so that's why it's really good if you're a new designer to sort of like figure out your process early on and sort of set, they don't have to be hard and fast deadlines, but at least some soft dates that you want to get things done by, because there is, you know, actually figuring out your math for your design and then knitting your sample and making sure everything works out in accordance to the math. And it makes sense to you, but does it make sense to the other person who's going to be
And that's where
it?
sort of the other process comes in, right? Because I get it tech edited, and my tech editor gets it tech edited by her tech editor to make sure everybody is, you know, on in agreement with everything that's and how it's working out. And then I get it test knitted. It's very important for me to always put out a call for test knitters, because I'm only one person, and my tech editor, you know, we've been staring at this thing for forever. So, and I want to know how people like what experience they're having when they're knitting it. Like, does everything make sense? Are there parts where I could be clearer, more concise, more consistent? And are you just having fun? And then at the end of it, like, did you make something and you were happy about it? Because that's what I want. And it's sort of why Wonderful Knits is Wonderful Knits, because I love to travel, and for me, yes, I love the being in the place and the experiencing the things, but the journey getting there is also so important. And so while I want people to love and have adoration for the things that they've created, I also want them to enjoy the actual knitting process as well.
Yeah.
And then there's photography, and then there's marketing.
So we can find you on your website. You have a blog and you talk about all this.
Yeah, I talk about my travels. I talk about yarny things that are just appealing to me in the moment. I talk about, it's sort of like where I can, because I don't have a lot of knitting friends. I have my really good group of knitting friends. But I love to talk about knitting, right? Like just everywhere. So my blog is kind of my ability to do that, where I'm not just like, you know, talking about it to my friends who don't understand knitting, and they're just giving me the blank stare.
When are you going to knit me a hat? Or when are you going to knit me a scarf? Like, I don't want to know how you do it, just give it to me. And that's another thing. I mean, knitting takes so much time, and it's a big process, and it's not cheap. Like, I mean, you talk about buying your first bottle of yarn earlier at Walmart, and I've done the same thing when I first started to knit in Michael's. And then the first time I walked into a local yarn store, I was like, wow. And the fiber was different, and it lasts longer, and you got help. You got people who can help you when you go into a local yarn store. Absolutely. So as a designer, now that we know you a little bit of your process and how you do it, what's your biggest obstacle?
So for me, there are two. The one is keeping to my deadlines that I've set for myself, because I do work a full-time job. So I tend to, do my design aspects of my work after my full-time job. Yeah, like after hours, then I go to my second job and I start kind of working things through there. So sometimes keeping to the deadlines can be a little tough. But I just give myself some grace there, because at the end of the day, I'm only human, and I'm trying to meet them as best as I can. And yeah, sometimes the math can really be tricky. I won't lie, like, especially when it's your first time doing a construction that you're not super familiar with design wise just yet. Like, you're used to knitting it. But when you're starting to think about how the math applies when knitting it,
with different sizes,
it's a bit different. So for me, those are the two sort of challenges I tend to come up to. But that's where having that support really comes into play, because
absolutely.
Then I can talk to someone and say, I'm feeling really down about the fact that I never meet my deadlines. And they're like, who meets their deadlines?
You're supposed to have another deadline after your first one. So like you said earlier, it's a soft deadline, and then you have the other one. Oh, that's amazing. So what do you do as a person? Like, now we're through the February blues and winter has been long and we haven't seen much sunshine. What do you do to decompress and forget about your deadline and your obstacle?
Yeah, when I'm not knitting, I'm doing something else with my hands. I play video games.
Oh, you do?
I am a huge video gamer, and so is my partner, to the point where sometimes we're like, I think it's my turn to play.
That's something I didn't know about you.
Yeah. We also play a lot of games together, but we also have like individual games that we play. And so, I play a lot of video games. I find it just helps me to decompress, especially if it's like got a really good storyline, or if it's one of those story-based games where, whatever choices I make, has an effect on the plot. I have to really sort of think about it. It's just another way to kind of apply my brain to a different sort of puzzle. And also to give my wrist just a little bit of a break from trying to knit things rather quickly.
So, you go to your fingers and to your wrist. Yeah, very nice. So, and do you do anything else?
Yeah, I dance.
Yes.
So sometimes, if you're on my Instagram, you might see some of my dance videos. I started dancing, I think, 2-3 years ago. I've always loved dancing,
and
never did it professionally.
Let me tell you, the girls got moved.
It's just a really great way to like just move my body, and to just mentally, I find that it helps me just sort of process things better and come to a more relaxed state. And then honestly, by the time I get home, I'm so tired I can't do or think of anything, and I sleep like an absolute baby, and it's amazing.
Yeah, it's like a workout too, and it's a mental workout when you say like it just makes you think of something else and not having to think about your math or your day job. You just go and express yourself on the dance floor. That's pretty amazing. If you were going to be a backup dancer for someone, who would that be?
Rihanna. I don't even have to think. Island girl to island girl, it would be Rihanna.
Yeah. So I'm just going to ask you some fun questions so we can get to know who is Symone. Favorite food?
Oh man, that's tricky. Okay. Because I love food. So
you're a foodie?
I'm a foodie, so this is hard. But I will say that a Trinidadian curry with like hot bus-up shot. If you don't know what it is, look it up. I will give you those pronunciations so people
Very good.
Amazing.
Really?
Favorite.
So, takeout or cook at home?
Cook at home.
Cook at home.
I do like takeout when I'm lazy, but I do really love preparing a meal.
Yeah, me too. I really like non-processed food. So food that is whole, that I can cook and I know what's in it. No preservative and all that. So I think it makes me feel better when I eat well. Favorite color?
Blue. Or anything on the blue-green spectrum.
Yeah, very nice. Now, favorite drink?
Like what kind of drink?
Could be anything.
Well, if we're talking alcohol, a Paloma. I love a Paloma. Grapefruit juice. vodka, a little bit of sugar in there,
Okay.
shake it all up some nice with some ice. It's beautiful.
Are we going for a drink after?
We could.
Dog or cat?
Cats. I mean, oh, that's such a tough. I love them both, but I have cats, so I'm gonna have to say cats.
Oh, very nice. Your dream car?
Oh, I don't know if I have a dream car. That's a good question.
I don't have one either. Like, to me, if it takes me from point A to point B, I'm happy.
Yeah, a working one.
That's right. Lake or ocean?
Ocean. That salty smell of the ocean.
Probably reminds you of home.
It reminds me so much of home. Every Sunday, my parents would take us as a family to the beach, and that memory is just ingrained in me. So the moment I smell salt water and hear the waves like lapping, I just think of that, and I just feel so safe and so wholesome.
That's very nice. There was a few questions I forgot to ask Symone, and I thought it was important to ask her if she always gauge swatch.
So I want to say yes. But I will be honest, I gauge swatch for all of my designs because it's absolutely necessary. Like you're not gonna get anything close to what your mind is envisioning if you don't use your gauge swatch, because that's where you get all the numbers for your math from. When I'm knitting other people's designs, if it's a yarn I'm unfamiliar with, I will definitely gauge swatch. If it's one that I'm kind of familiar with, I might play it fast and loose. But don't be like me.
That's right.
Knit your gauge swatches.
Yeah. Not what I do.
Yeah. Knit your gauge swatches. They will save you a lot of time.
Absolutely. And it's funny when people say to me like, oh, I'm always on gauge. Well, you're always on gauge compared to what? Because the actual designer may be a loose knitter, and when she does her gauge and count her stitches in her 4 square or 10 centimeter square, she could have like a lot less or a lot more than what you would do with the same size needle. So don't go by what you normally do, go by what the designer designs as well.
That is very good advice, especially if you're doing color work.
Yes, well, color work is a different story. Go up a needle size maybe, right? When you actually do the color work.
I've had to like knit color work inside out.
Okay.
Yeah, because I did not gauge swatch.
And then if you color work, it's all about the float, really. Now, loose your float is, but you don't want it to loose so that your color, your
snagging it. Out. I've been there.
but you don't want them too tight, otherwise you can't have any stretch in your garment, right? So yeah gauge swatching. And if the pattern is, follow the direction of the designer, really. If the designer says gauge swatch in the round, you should do that. Yes. Because if the garment is knitted in the round and you gauge swatch flat, you will have a total different stitch count. Definitely. Most people do when you purl. When you purl, you do too?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do too. It depends on the yarn. But most of the time, I do have a different gauge, so I have to factor all of that in.
Absolutely. And since this podcast is primarily on tips and tricks that I wish I knew, what is the tip or trick that you like to share?
Yeah, so last year, I found a really good tutorial on how to seam with a crochet hook instead of a needle. So I don't always knit pieces that are, separated and then I have to put them together. But when I do, and I have to do mattress stitch, I never, ever want to do it. They never line up. There's always an extra 2 stitches on one row, not enough on another. It's a mess. But when I learned the trick with the crochet hook, I found that I was picking up all of the stitches accurately, lining them up well. And by the time I got to the end, they were all there.
And it does a nice finish?
It does a beautiful invisible finish. You couldn't even see it.
Okay, I will definitely keep that in mind for my next. I try to stay away from pieces garment, but sometimes there's no going around it. Like mostly if you do something that is a v-neck, and you do have to, knit it around to the time that you get to the arm, and then right?
Yeah.
Okay, I will keep that in mind. Thank you, Symone.
You're welcome.
So that's it. I think I've asked you everything I want to know about Symone at WanderfulKnits.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for being here.
We're
going to be linking Symone's Ravelry page and her website and all the good stuff we've been talking about. Yeah.
Thank you for having me. This was so much fun.
It was. Well, thank you. And we'll see you next time, guys.
Bye.
Bye.